maybe it's also good for people to maybe share a bit more of the vulnerabilities in that sense, because being an entrepreneur is mainly a success story. If you look at my LinkedIn, it's also sort of like a self-promotion kind of thing. Like, and that's just the way it is. Like, you're not gonna put stuff on there that's super humiliating. But this is the reality, right? Everybody has setbacks. Everybody has things that don't work. But we're sort of, let's say, not supposed to talk about those, and more, let's say, inclined to talk about all the successes. So if you have a business, then it always goes super well until you're bankrupt, and there's literally no state in between. Like, I haven't ever seen a post of an entrepreneur saying like, "Oh, I have such a tough week," or "Sales are bad," or this, that, and that, and then like 3 months later, the company was bankrupt. It's always from standing on top of the hill, screaming everything's going well, and then bankrupt.
And welcome back to In Check with Fintech. In this episode, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Thomas Vles. Thomas is the founder of GoDutch, a fintech reinventing business banking with smart automation that saves entrepreneurs time and money. In just 10 months, GoDutch has onboarded more than 5,000 users and processed over 50 million euros in monthly transactions. Previously, Thomas built and sold PoopyCat, scaled fintech Tello to acquisition, and served as CRO at Agiras. With GoDutch, he's building Europe's most loved business account, fast, fair, and refreshingly human. Enjoy listening.
What I actually wanted to start with is quote, which I think I have to thank your wife for. But I think she says that you like to do stuff that kills you.
Yeah, or nearly kills me. Puts me in a position where I can be killed.
In business, in personal life, or where did that mainly come about?
I mean, I think this mainly comes about in my personal life when she's hinting towards my mountain climbing and diving and those kind of more extreme sport activities. But also, let's say, in terms of work, I'm also, let's say, pretty extreme. But it's not that, let's say, that you're looking over the edge and then you might die tomorrow. But it's a pretty grim opening statement.
Well, yeah, I guess how you look at it, right? I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of kind of overlap with entrepreneurship and doing stuff that kills you and kind of pushes you to that extreme. Is that how you see it as well? Like, do you feel that you doing the more extreme sports, let's say, so I think it's diving, it's hiking, it's climbing, it's anything else?
No, I think that sums it up.
Kind of sums it up.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
No, I think taking mountain climbing as an example, I think is a great comparison to conducting business, because especially with startups, it's basically like climbing a mountain, and it's very long and very heavy and not really fun. There's nobody that really enjoys mountain climbing, but people do it. But same as with starting a business, and every time you think you're getting close to the summit, there's another, let's say, climb that you need to make, and that's sort of the feeling that you have also when you're doing a startup. Like, I think that's an essential part of it, is that you need to persevere and continue to go, even though you're, let's say, things are not working your way, or you don't find product market fit, or you run out of money. Like, all these problems are there, but then you still need to keep on going.
Yeah.
And I think it was Winston Churchill who said that it's like getting punched in the face and then keep going without losing your enthusiasm, or something along those lines. And that's basically it. And yeah, I feel that unfortunately still a lot, but that's something that's part of starting a business.
Although I feel that with starting a business and the kind of setbacks you have there are normally outside of your control, whereas climbing a mountain or reaching a summit, it's like, okay, I just have to push through. As long as the mountain is going to change. Whereas I feel, well, let's take the metaphor of the mountain in entrepreneurship, that is changing constantly, but outside of your control.
Correct. No, I think indeed. So for mountain climbing, the reason I got into mountain climbing is more that it was actually a coincidence. So I started doing it to do more off-piste snowboarding, and then if you want to get some good places and you can't afford a helicopter, then you just climb up there. Then I realized that I really enjoyed doing that, because that sort of like puts your mind in a meditative state, so you're not thinking about anything. So then came to the idea to climb Mont Blanc, which is on paper seemingly easy and was quite hard in real life. And then I sort of got more addicted to it, because like we did some other mountains in Africa and in Himalaya, and then when you're there, you're climbing for 2 weeks or longer, then you really do not think about anything except, let's say, the next step in front of your foot. It's like it's an incredible way for a very busy mind to not think about anything. So I guess that's the feeling that I'm sort of lurking for when I'm doing that. But the reality is that when you just come down from the mountain, you don't ever want to climb a mountain again. And then as time passes, then like you'll make in your mind it becomes less traumatizing as it was. So then at some point after 6 months or 9 months, you're like, okay, hey, let's maybe do another mountain. So when I talk with my wife about this, I always give the example that there's apparently a system in the brain for women when they give birth that sort of makes the experience forgetful.
Yeah.
So you forget all the horrible things, you only remember the beautiful things, and that's why people are getting more than one child. Because otherwise, like there's no person in the world will be crazy enough to do that again.
No, true.
And I think that's a little bit the same with the mountain climbing. So your brain makes you forget, and then at some point you can go do it again.
I want to get close to what my wife is experiencing right now, which is getting a second baby soon. Despite indeed kind of her first pregnancy, is climbing a mountain.
Yes.
It's kind of a metaphor as a man, or if the analogy to follow. Interesting. Is it what is the hardest about climbing a mountain though? Is it the sickness? Is it the
it's definitely a combination of a lot of things. So the sickness is definitely part of it. So it's very difficult to eat. It's horrible. So I'm also not, let's say, typically designed for it, I guess. So I have a lot of headaches and a lot of issues. I'm also not always as fit as you hoped for when you reach the mountain. So it's always very hard on me. But I think it's the combination of these things. So you don't feel fit. It's very heavy and it's very long. So it's I sort of try to, with everything in my life, I try to sort of create to-dos, and then like you can be creating shorter steps, and like in your mind saying like, okay, I'm now at 60% of today or 30% after lunch, like trying to talk yourself through it. But that's sort of the way you need to cope with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's eventually you always make it. I think that's also something that's really interesting. Like you can really push yourself a lot further than you think.
Do you feel it makes you the entrepreneur you are today, the fact that you do these extreme sports, or do you think that's maybe an over exaggeration?
I think that those things are probably to some extent linked. So I think there's probably a connection between the two. So indeed, again, the perseverance you need as an entrepreneur is really sometimes it's quite hard, right? So you start a business. For GoDutch things go really well, but I also had businesses where things didn't go as well, or you have to really fight for your first customers and you have a lot of setbacks, and it's really hard on you because like it's not that you can go home and turn off the clock and then it's no longer your problem. Like if you don't have a business, then you don't have bread on the table. So it's really quite pushy, and I think that might be a resemblance that I think that most entrepreneurs that are successful carry the same trait, which is that they keep on going. Despite any setbacks, despite negative feedback or people saying it can't be done or this and that, but just keep on going and smile about it. So, and I think actually to add to that point, maybe it's also good for people to maybe share a bit more of the vulnerabilities in that sense, because being an entrepreneur is mainly a success story. If you look at my LinkedIn, it's also sort of like a self-promotion kind of thing. Like, and that's just the way it is. Like, you're not gonna put stuff on there that's super humiliating, but this is the reality, right? Everybody has setbacks, everybody has things that don't work, but we're sort of let's say not supposed to talk about those, and more let's say inclined to talk about all the successes. So if you have a business, then it always goes super well until you're bankrupt, and there's literally no state in between. Like, I haven't ever seen a post of an entrepreneur saying like, oh, I have such a tough week, or sales are bad, or this, that, and that, and then like 3 months later the company was bankrupt. It's always from standing on top of the hill, screaming everything's going well, and then bankrupt. So
yeah, true. Yeah, I guess it's also maybe if I look at myself hearing you talking, maybe a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, why would people want to hear about me having a hard time, right? How, if you put it in perspective to other people's lives and how difficult they might have it, like how hard is my life? Do you see what I mean? So you kind of undervalue or underestimate maybe how hard it is and how important, who wants to listen to you failing? I guess that's...
No, but that's like, and I would respect the argument of somebody who's not posting at all. But like, if you're posting your successes but not your failures, then like you're just trying to get some credit, right? You're still trying to share something.
True.
So, and I don't think people do it on purpose, right? It's the same as Instagram, right? Like you use Instagram to show how cool your life is, not how you're sitting depressed on the couch, right? So that's just how those mediums are designed. So people want likes, and likable content is typically more positive content.
True, that's true. Yeah. Maybe before we dive into your stories as an entrepreneur, because I know that there's many, you have an interesting background as you're studying, right? Physics, astrophysics, and psychology. How did that come about?
Well, physics and astrophysics is one study, so that already makes it easier.
There we go.
I was in high school. I was a bit of like my wife would like to say that I was a bit of a nerd. So doing mathematical clubs and those kind of things, and I really wanted to study physics because that was for me, let's say, something I really enjoyed. It really fits also what I love to do and understand more. So I went to do that, but it was really hard, and I made it. But really, like the mountain, a really hard, like 40 hours a week of studying, and let's say sitting with brilliant people that are actually, let's say, got to pick up things really quick. So I had the realization to myself that like, okay, how much do I care about this? And also the topics were very theoretical, whereas in the beginning, let's say in physics in high school was really explaining stuff that you can see, and then it becomes more abstract. And it's sort of enjoyable, but also, again, really hard. And then you see your other friends, they're going out all the time, drinking beer 5 times a week. And for me, that feeling eventually also, won, so to speak. And I decided to do something that was also very interesting, which is psychology, which I think is actually super important. I actually recently said in another blog that I think that should be a high school subject. Yeah, but that's actually something that I really stand for, and I hope that someday I can help make that become a reality. But that's something that's also very natural to me, but I think to a lot of people to study, and definitely doesn't take as many hours as physics, but also very helpful for the rest.
Definitely, yeah. I think entrepreneurship is about psychology oftentimes, right? Whether it's your own or that of your clients or your team. I mean, it's all.
There's a lot of psychology in all these things. So, for example, with fundraising. So, it's quite a hard period for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So, like people trying to break your business, you need to get the first one in, you need to create FOMO because then it works better. And then actually, like once the moment is there that you sort of, let's say, find funding or you get a term sheet and that, then suddenly all these others also come through. And there's no real cause for that other than probably you're just changing and your whole mentality changes and you're different in the conversation and you're relaxed. And then suddenly people are jumping on that ship. So that's something that's really cool to see as well.
You sell scarcity, but almost, right? That's what people want.
Well, that's what you need to create. That's what you need to create. I don't necessarily always like those tactics because I have the feeling that sometimes they're like a little bit fake. But they are successful. I'm just, let's say from my nature, my negotiation tactic would be more or less to just agree on a number together and not play games. But you unfortunately always have to play those games, and that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So if you're just going out there and saying like I'm just going to make one offer and that's going to be it, then that's not going to be the offer. So you need to be smart and
Never works like that. Everyone wants to feel like they won something in the process, right? Or at least most people, and that's what negotiation is for.
That's what negotiation is for, but I think it's, let's say, for us, one of the core things for us in the business is to create win-wins. So we're really reliant with GoDutch on partnerships, and that's basically just figuring out what benefits everyone. And if you find out what benefits everybody, then it's a no-brainer for everybody to join because everybody gets better out of it. The end user, the partner, the world, us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just going back on what you earlier said, you think everyone should be taught psychology in school. Why is that? Why do you think that is such an important skill?
Yeah, so I think, but maybe it's for me personal, but I think that let's say, grew up when I was like 26, and it was quite late.
Yeah.
I think other people are earlier with that, but it's let's say, there's a lot of things that I didn't really understand for myself, and let's say, if you look at the world, and now especially with that sort of the polarization that's going on in Europe and in the US, where there's more like you're either on one side or the other. There's nothing in the middle anymore. I think basic social psychology can explain that if you are in one of those groups and you look at the other group, that like you're gonna look at them differently and you're gonna value them differently and you're gonna, let's say, give them let's say, not credits for their good work and bad things. So these are all basic concepts that create more disparity between groups that is really easy to explain. And if you understand it, then you, let's say, could come a little bit close together as these groups. And that's something that I feel, but the same goes for understanding how your own mental situation works, how these things can affect that everybody feels, let's say, things sometimes. So I think that's something that is like sort of a great toolkit to have for especially, let's say, young adults, but everybody in life to have in your backpack.
Interesting. I should talk to my wife about this. She's a psychologist, but I've never had anyone speak about this being taught in school. what I always hear people talking about is, let's teach them software engineering, let's teach them AI skills now.
Yeah.
Which probably, if I'm going to ask you, you're going to say, yeah, those are all very important as well.
I think it does. Like, I mean, it depends on what your interests are, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be a psychologist, there's no real point in getting to taught software development. But indeed, like, I think I think the world has changed a lot, and I think the education system is still a little bit fixed in the 80s probably. And I think especially in terms of topics, that's actually something that's easy to change. So to add software development or to add psychology to the curriculum for high schools is not something that's impossible to do. You have to skill some other things. Maybe you have to kill, I don't know, religious studies or something else, which for me personally are less valuable. But this is the discussion that you need to have. But I think kids should also choose what they would like to do.
Totally, yeah. I think if I look back at my high school, I don't think there was a lot of awareness created around, if you choose this studies, then these are the 10 things you could be doing. Or if you want to do this, then this is what you need to study. Or, okay, you like psychology, or you don't like psychology yet, but let us show you what psychology is like, without now burning down the school systems. Not the podcast for that, but I think it's an interesting approach for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. It's been standing still. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think actually this is the problem. So for me it was easy because I'm I like math. So for me it was like there's one, let's say, direction you could go in, and I'm not sure if it's still the same way in schools now actually, but that's just the thing, right? You're asking really young kids to make a decision that's going to impact the rest of their lives. And that's now in my time it had 4 tastes, and those are like from cultural going to economical to let's say medical kind of things, and then I think it was more the quantitative
physics
side. And that's if you're a young kid and then let's say I was also not always properly motivated, then more work or less work, that kind of stuff. I mean, this was my story in the student life, right? I could have studied physics, or I can studied psychology and have a more social life. Yeah.
True, but you still did physics, studied 40 hours a week. So I guess that there's definitely
not for the entire.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. I was going to give you a compliment and say there's great again.
For the first year, full disclosure.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. So maybe going through kind of so you started then, I think during your studies with the health tech, then afterwards you went into a strategic consultancy, and then you found your own first business, right? Poopy Cat.
Correct.
How did that come about? And what is it? I mean, Poopy Cat, the name.
Poopy Cat. Yeah, Poopy Cat was... so I was a strategy consultant, and at the time I lived together with my girlfriend. Well, now it's my ex-girlfriend, but with a girlfriend. And she had cats. So we had, let's say, a discussion at home about how to handle the things that you need to do if you have cats. And one thing is you need to vacuum a lot. And the other thing you need to do is you need to clean a litter box. And the litter box is like 5 minutes, super shitty. Cleaning the house, vacuuming the house is 30 minutes, but it's then medium shitty. So we made a deal that I would do the litter box. And when I was, while I was doing the litter box cleaning, one of the cats, so I was in the, let's say, rinsing it out. One of the cats went inside the bag of cat litter and started doing a little surprise inside the bag. And that was for me the moment where I realized, hey, that's interesting. The cat doesn't associate the box because I have it in my hand, but it associates the litter with going to the toilet. So I started doing experiments. So putting like litter on a plate and then putting it in a different corner of the house. And everywhere where you put litter, the cat would go pee or poop. So I thought like, okay, that's cool. So now we can move on and we can create a disposable cat litter box. And the idea of a disposable cat litter box is very simple. So it's like sort of a pizza box. You fold it open, it's ready to go. You put it down, and after a week you collapse it and you can throw it away in the green bin. So it's biodegradable. So it's better for the environment. It's better for the cat because it's more clean. It's better for the human because you no longer have to clean the litter box. So everybody wins. And it didn't exist. So we got a patent. And we did some more experiments with literally shitty experiments. So things went wrong sometimes, of course, in trying to find out what worked. And then I went and did my first fundraise, which went very quickly and very, let's say, effortlessly. But it was also the only time that it worked. So talking back about how, let's say, psychology or how, let's say, your mind influences these things. So I had no idea how fundraising worked. So I just went out there and went to, let's say, VCs and angels. And I said, like, if you don't do it today, then, don't bother calling. And it actually worked, but it only worked that time because I had no idea what I was doing. But after that, it became more and more harder because you understand more and more of the world. So we raised $250,000 in sort of a pre-seed and we went live and we We're successful with the cat litter boxes to some extent, but our real success came from the cat toys that we developed. So we developed sort of Legos for cats and other sort of, let's say, famous buildings where a cat could sleep in, all from cardboard. And
Wow.
those kind of things really exploded and got us to sell in over 30 countries. So it was really cool.
Did I see you were on a bike in London with cats in the front?
That's also a funny story. So we were opening the pop-up store,
Nice, yeah.
and in London, and we needed a campaign for that. So we had something planned, but it didn't really pan out. So we were like 2 weeks before the launch, we didn't have an idea yet. So we just got a bottle of red wine and started talking, and then the idea came: why don't you cycle to London with your cat? And easy done, easy said, easy done. So we did it, and it was actually quite successful. I mean, for us in terms of PR, we were featured on the landing page of the BBC, which was like something like insane, and a lot of tabloids and stuff when being the weird cat boy. But it was really fun and really cool to do, and a really good way to enter a market. And that's something I think that I miss. Like we did so many crazy things in the Poopy Cat time, so we had all these ideas. So we thought like, okay, let's see if a lion can go on the cat litter box. We just start calling zoos, and then there was a zoo that said, okay, you can put a really big litter box in the lion's den, and then you can do whatever you want to do with it. So then we went to the zoo with a really big litter box, and that we, let's say, also put together in the middle of the night, and and we just see, and indeed a lion can go in a big litter box. You create a big one. So those kind of things were just really fun.
That is insane. So there's a lot of fun stuff you did there. It sounds like you had a lot of success early on, success as well with raising the pre-seed, which it's interesting you say that then when you start to learn more about the world, it becomes more difficult. Whereas you would say that when you start to learn more about the world and the way it works, it should become easier. But for you, it was the other way around because it was so easy the first time. You thought it's always going to be easy like this.
No, I think it has more to do with the fact that you learn. So I think it's the same with entrepreneurship. So for now, let's say I think I never have been as insecure as I have been with GoDutch, because now I have a family, I have a wife, I have, let's say, your life is just more expensive, but you cannot go back to eating noodles so your bets that you make need to be, let's say, quicker, and let's say you have so much more downsides and risks that's something that is in the back of your mind.
True.
And when you're 25, like you really don't care. And for me especially, I didn't see any downside because I was just doing it. I didn't really thought it through, so to speak. And that becomes different when you get older and when you had business before. And I think that's also why, let's say, investors like repeat founders, because they understand the game better. And of course, you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of things. But I think you're also, let's say, prone to being more successful if you do it in that way. I think that's the benefit of it.
That makes sense, yeah. The real struggle, I think, with this one of the biggest learn with Poopy Cat came at the end, right? Where you're about to sell.
Yeah, we were growing really fast, and we were like a B2C company, and making cat videos. And every time we posted a video, we got like 1 million views. So it was super fun. But our real growth came from the B2B segment, and we were not very strong in there. We also, let's say, had a lot of difficulties, getting our margins in there. So we took a lot of contracts out that were really high in volume, but we made very little money on it, with a lot of logistical issues. Eventually a really big private company that sort of is the supplier of all the cat litter you see in the supermarket without the brand. They came to us and they said like, hey, we love you and we want to buy the company. And with them together, we could really create a product that would be cheaper and better. And with their distribution, we could sell everywhere. So it was like an amazing opportunity for us. Yes, full excitement. We signed a letter of intent, but that was it. And indeed, as you already know, otherwise you wouldn't ask the question, things came down. So the director was replaced, and a new director came in, and he said, like, I just started this new role, so many countries, so we need more time. So we like it, but we need 6 to 12 months extra. We made the mistake to already let go of our staff, not ordering, new stock, just stopping the marketing altogether. So we didn't have any revenue anymore. And then, without revenue, it's very hard to get funding. And then, if you want to get funding, they said, like, okay, but then the company needs to say that they're going to buy your company. But of course, they're not going to say that. Otherwise, they might as well do it now. So, that was a proper mistake, which I think let's say from the type of learnings as well is like really celebrate when you're there, and that's really at the end when the money's in the bank and not before that. Because we already celebrated it, right? We were like, oh yeah, we're millionaires, like it's done. But it's so that was a hard come down. Eventually we were quite lucky that we could still sell to the market leader in the Netherlands. And because like the brand got continued, we still got a little bit out of it. Like let's say it was a successful sale, but it was not like like what you envisioned it could have been. And now let's say I got over it quite quickly. Like I think it's also a good lesson, but it's still something to keep in mind. Yeah.
How do you get over something like that?
I mean, it's you get over quite quickly because these kind of things. We were speaking about, let's say, what happens if you're an entrepreneur. Like these things happen all the time. Funnily enough, if you are the one making the mistake, you're like, I mean, I am very hard on myself, and I can take very small mistakes as hard as these ones. But that's just you need to figure out a way to deal with that because, let's say, the perfect entrepreneurial journey, I don't think it exists. So I think it's always a way of learning fast and making mistakes and being vulnerable about it and open and then and trying to improve. I think that's at least for me that the way I want to do it. Maybe other entrepreneurs are the ones that just scream really hard and keep on going, but they also make mistakes. So
Life goes on, right?
you have to.
That's it, yeah. You certainly didn't have enough of entrepreneurship because you moved on and went to start your next company. We Do, I Do. I think, right?
With some also some music festivals in between and some other things I really wanted to do for a long time. But indeed, We Do, I Do was the other big one. So came from another frustration. So after cleaning the litter boxes, I got married to my current wife. I was planning to get married to my current wife, and I did eventually marry her.
Good to mention that. Yeah,
good to mention that. It's a very frustrating process. And We Do, I Do was basically it's called an image classifying algorithm. But what it was for us is that when you're starting to plan your wedding, you're looking at locations, and then there's like one or two really big websites with all the locations, and in your mind, you have a picture of how your wedding should look. So, like you want a house and it needs to be white and this, that, and that. And then you go into these websites and there's like categories and it's the castle, is the farm, like I don't really know. So we decided, okay, if you can create a mood board for your wedding with all the things in there, like including the cutlery and everything else, then, we can create the whole wedding plan based on that mood board. And then you get the wedding that you want. While also, let's say, and that's the second frustration there is like you need to get better deals from vendors because as soon as you walk in some place and you say it's for a wedding, the prices go up and you need to spend it. So that was the idea, and we also raised some funds for it and started building it. And we learned also lessons there. And I think the most valuable lesson, I think, first one off is recurring business. So. It's very nice to do banking now where, the customers tend to use their cards every day because people hopefully for them get married once, maybe twice, but definitely not more than that. So it's a one-off customer, and they're still, because of the size of the deals, there's quite a high acquisition cost for it. So it's not that these people are, let's say, easy to obtain.
Yeah.
But I think also, and let's say less obvious, is the fact that when you feel the pain of this process, so you only know that is hard when you start already planning it. So you're already likely to be in talk with vendors. So we were always the second option that came in a little bit late, and that coming in late in your sales cycle is also something that we need to keep in mind. That's you have an extra hurdle to step over, so that also made it harder.
But it didn't seem like that was the issue, right? It was COVID, I think, that came around.
COVID was very handy, and it was fine. But we had a lot of problems before that. So let's say we had 1,200 vendors. We had a couple of customers, so we did quite well. But let's say the moment the first revenue should have gone in was indeed the first summer of COVID. But it wasn't also that it was let's say an incredible, huge success at that time. So we could have maybe prolonged it. But it's not the same as the momentum that we're, for example, seeing now with GoDutch.
What's the main takeaway you take from that adventure then?
From that venture?
From that adventure, sorry.
Yeah, from that adventure. I think, as I said, I think it's important to, when you start a business, to really, let's say, understand. It's always important to understand why it hasn't been done before. Because I think by now, most of the business ideas already have been tried, at least. So if you're doing something completely different, then you need to have, let's say, a really good idea of the market. And again, for us, with hindsight, it was easy to understand that, and maybe it even came later, that like there's no repeat business. There's let's say you're later in the sales cycle. That's stuff that's hard.
Fair,
So
yeah.
it's just easier when you know that you can use the same customer more than once.
So after this, you did, and you think you still do investing, right? You back like a Swan, for example, and then 11 months ago you started GoDutch.
9 months ago.
9 months ago.
Oh yeah, maybe it depends on when this is
Right,
aired.
it's on LinkedIn. It says 11 months, so that's why. No, on LinkedIn it says 11 months, so that's why I'm saying 11. But let's say 9 months ago, but go live, it's 11 again. So 11 months ago. How did that come about?
That's also let's say a good story. So after let's say I had a couple of other things, and I was headhunted to take over Tello as CEO, and Tello was a corporate venture from the Rabobank. Typical corporate venture. So this beautiful software, a big team, but like let's say a lot of struggles with the growth, because when they were still let's say 100% on the Rabobank, they got their leads from Rabobank, but when it stopped, they failed to sort of grow by themselves. So I came in to fix that, which was a super cool adventure. We were the first in the Netherlands also to integrate banking and accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we're super proud of. And eventually when Tello was integrated into Ageros, I moved to Ageros and I became chief revenue officer there. And then there also I had experience with Contist, which is a B2B neobank, and a lot of other accountant and expense management kind of software. So saw a lot of the world, and a lot of our competitors, and also sort of identified a space in the market that we feel is still, at least in Europe, not taken, and that's something that we really focus on. And that's basically better business banking, which is related to companies that typically are a little bit bigger. So let's say not the freelancers and the holding companies, but let's say companies that have, say, some people on the staff and on the payroll. That's the kind of companies that we feel that we can really help with better banking.
And why did you decide to start another neobank, let's say?
I
don't want to butcher it down. I mean, it's more than that, but
there was a couple of reasons, right? So for me, I was already walking around with the idea for quite a while. We didn't really work on it, but it's let's say the reasons for me to do this was also different. So I got a baby, and when I was still working the other job, and the other job had 6 offices around the world. So I was in Europe and the US, so it was a lot of time in the air, a lot of time away from home. And when I went on holiday, and this is of course a typical moment where you started to reflect things, I realized that I was actually doing it for the wrong reasons, right? So I was chasing money, chasing status, feeling important, that kind of stuff, and basically wasn't there for my baby. So after 6 months, my baby was around 6 months. That's the time when I also, let's say, told my old board that I wanted to get out, and also start working on my own project. And that's actually was the beginning, and that's probably 11 months ago.
Exactly. Yeah. Did it also come from you seeing the large banks, in the Netherlands at least, the 3 big banks, recording crazy amounts of profits and thinking?
No, of course. There's the personal approach. So as I mentioned, the idea, I was already walking around with the idea for a longer time, and the idea is basically very simple. So I'm really convinced there needs to be a better banking experience for basically everyone, but specifically for small business. And the reason for that is very simple. Like the service is very shit. It's terribly slow. And also it's quite expensive, and there's also a lot of hidden fees. And it's, let's say, a fully fragmented market. So people tend to have a bank account, expense management software, they have a bookkeeper account, and then they have lending, payments. They're all different platforms that they need to use, and it's very inconvenient. And for, let's say, the freelancer market, you see that those products are already implemented into one platform, which is super handy. And that's actually something now that we're trying to do for a little bit more mature companies.
So you offer a full suite of banking to more mature companies, basically.
Yeah, so we internally call it banking plus plus, but my CPTO will kill me if I say this during an interview.
We just did. Great, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So basically, we feel that, let's say, if you ask a financial controller in a company, or a bookkeeper, or an accountant, or a CFO, like, what's the source of truth? The bank account is the real truth, right? That's just the way it is. So for us, banking is sort of the bottom layer of what we're trying to build. But on top of that, there's a lot of things that a business needs. And So we started off with expense management, so providing cards for your team. So that's something that was already offered in the market by, for example, Playo or Moss or those kind of companies. But those were not connected to your bank account. And again, it's a separate data stream. So for us, it's very easy to connect those to the bank, make sure that they're directly related. They also work from the same app. But most importantly, we can create one data stream that goes into the accounting software or the ERPs that people are using. So instead of having, let's say, a bucket with receipts and a bucket of transactions, which the accountant is trying to reconcile at the end of a quarter, we can provide one data stream with the receipt in it, the VAT rate, the ledger, approval flows if needed, all that kind of things, together with the bank information. So it's just one line in, and that reduces a lot of work for these companies. We also reduce a lot of cost because, let's say, these tools that I mentioned before, they work well, but they're very, very expensive. It also reduces risk because, let's say, if you have all the data in one platform, you have a real-time overview of how your business is doing, rather than, at the end of the month you have to close your books. I'm not sure if you ever worked for a larger company, but in the companies I worked for with Tello, it took 7 days to close your books, to know where you really were at. And with other companies, it sometimes takes 2 weeks. And that's just, manual work that's being done behind the scenes. And that's something that we intend to fix, sort of like becoming the self-drive car of let's say, banking and accounting. That's what we're at, and we're still in the very beginning. So now we have the banking with all the functionalities that you need, the expense card for your team, the travel cards, and the management software behind it to sort of streamline that. And the same goes for invoicing. So to just shoot, if you get an invoice, to shoot it in the email box, will automatically be paid. Those kind of features. That's the stuff that we feel that companies could really deserve to save time and money.
Definitely. You say you're at the beginning, but you already have, is it 3,000 customers?
Well, at the moment, so now at the time of taping, we have 3,000 customers, but we grow so fast that it might already be a lot more than that. But yeah, we're super lucky because up until now we haven't done any marketing, so we're now trying to, let's say, start with a few extra channels. But we feel that strategy of trying to outcompete really big banks with, as you mentioned, record profits and really deep pockets. Trying to outbid them on Google Ads is not a strategy that you're going to win long term. So for us, it's really important to find different ways to grow, and we do that with really good partnerships, but also by building a great product. And at the moment, 70% of our growth is word of mouth, organic, or free.
That's impressive, right?
It's impressive, and it's also something that we need to, let's say, keep on filling, because we're not sure if that will be, let's say, scalable at some point. It's let's say you're going to reach let's say a level where it's going to be hard to keep
plateau out, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we're still, the market is very, very big. So even the Netherlands alone, it's now we have 1% market share, which is actually kind of cool in 9 months. Yeah. But again, you can grow larger and larger, but there will be a plateau that you're going to reach. But it's super exciting. So we really see. But again, for us, we will start introducing new channels to see if it works, and if they're, let's say, effective, then we'll use them. But we cannot rely on them, because if we rely on them and there's a competitor out there with a lot of money, they can basically put you out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it? I mean, if you look at kind of the probably fundamental step in building a startup is the funding side of things, right? You rely on, there's the VC way, there's the angel way, there's the PE way. You're focused on the angel way at the moment, is that right?
Yeah, so, and we can also be very honest about that. So GoDutch was doing really well, and we got a lot of media attention. And let's say end of last year, we got, at the end of 2024, we got a lot of, let's say, VCs inbound. So
you were Startup of the Year, you're a finalist in MasterCard Accelerator.
So we won a lot of awards. So we had a lot of things. But like also on the European level, we just got a lot of inbound. So we spoke to a lot of VCs, which is super cool. So we thought like, okay, this is gonna work out, right? If you're having, let's say, 3-4 meetings with VCs, at some point you're gonna expect that one of them is gonna convert. And eventually the ones that we really liked did not convert. The ones that we, let's say, didn't like as much, also some of them converted, but not a lot. And and eventually we got some advice from one of the, let's say, partners from one of the VCs we really like to work with. And he basically told us like, maybe it's better to, do a small round now, like instead, so you keep on going, but then keep on growing, because we think that in 6 months it could be very interesting to us. So we decided to do, $500,000 in an angel round. And then we started doing that in the new year. So beginning of 2025, somewhere in January, I think end of January, we gave our users the opportunity to be the first to invest in the future of GoDutch. And super cool compliment, but the 500K was filled in like a couple of weeks. So
Amazing.
just by the users. So it was super cool. So we decided also to raise a bit more, to be a little bit more, let's say, flexible, so we can also invest more in product, invest more in growth. So eventually we went a little bit higher than that amount. With really cool angels. But for us, it was a huge compliment that your first users, even with a product that for me is like very early days, already go and stake your business. Yeah. So that's the best compliment we could get, and also helped us, let's say, accelerate our roadmap and growth.
Do you think that the fact you're so purpose driven helps with that, or why do you think that these customers are investing regardless? Is it the Revolut effect, where they see now, okay, well, if you have invested in 500 euros Revolut 10 years ago, I think you would be a millionaire by now.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
is the solution. What do you think?
That might have helped. I like the full disclosure. I don't think it's the purpose-driven part. So what we saw is when we started GoDutch, we were really emphasizing the climate positivity, really emphasizing our social strategy. And what we learned is that a lot of people find it very important, but it's not really a factor where people deciding on where they're looking for a business bank account. So they think it's interesting, it's nice to have, but it's not really that people are picking out the bank account for that reason. So we are, of course, still a commercial company, so we need to make money. So we need to be smart. So we found out that people like other things of the company better. So we need to promote with those things rather than only with let's say being purposeful. We think it's very important. We think it's a condition to doing business in this time. So we will keep on doing this. But it's not something that our users currently, as a huge group together, are finding the most important factor that they chose for GoDutch.
I feel that the founder is often the poster child of the startup. You in this case, obviously speaking to the man himself. That purpose-driven seems to be really close to your core. Is that why it's so important to GoDutch as well?
I think it should be very close to anybody's core. Because
but it isn't, so
I mean, it's obvious that we were breaking the records for weather every day. Like it's just all this stuff happening. I think you can deny it all that you want. And now, of course, we have Trump in the US that set back a lot of things in the US, and even in Europe, you see the effects of this. So I think even the agendas here are pushed down a bit. So I think it's up to us, the entrepreneurs, to fix this, because I don't think our governments are going to do enough to make it work. So I think it needs to come from us. And I think it's an obligation to do that for society, because again, I think we can all pass the stage of, let's say, denial. I think nobody's in denial anymore, at least not with dry eyes. So that's something that's for us. I also thought it would be a commercial argument. I still think it's a commercial argument, but maybe in the long term. Because in the long term, let's say when we stay climate positive, and then in 4 or 5 years time, people expect it to be a condition for banks. The big banks, Revolut by the time, and many other players, they won't be capable of doing it. It's very hard to do it retrospectively. Well, it's actually not super hard or super expensive to embed the organization from the beginning. But it's just a different culture and a different switch.
So true, but it wasn't. Why is it more important to you now than it was with Poopy Cat or with We Do I Do?
Yeah, no, with Poopy Cat it was also important because the boxes were biodegradable.
True, yeah.
But it was more or less also the case because a lot of people gave us the feedback saying like, you're going to create more trash. So then we actually found out that cat litter is super bad for the environment. So.
And for pregnant women, but that's on the side.
Yeah, that's, exactly. No, indeed, I think it becomes more important because I think for me, it became more apparent in the world that we do need to do stuff. And I don't want to sound, let's say, too alarming and anything else, but there is more things happening now and more movements toward, let's say, not caring about it and just denying it. Well, like you have floods in places where there was barely any rain, right? It's just like there's strange things happening, and I think we need to be realistic about it. And so I think. True. Again, I think it's a condition to being. If you start up a company in 2024 or 2025, like you need to have some kind of strategy for this.
I agree, especially for the generation to come, right?
Yeah.
For example, yeah. Are there any kind of core lessons that you took from your previous entrepreneur experiences, or maybe your full-time jobs as well, that you now have implemented at GoDutch that have an immediate effect on the business? Or subconsciously, you think, more so?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously let's say every day you learn, and all those lessons you take with you. That's just the way it works. So I think, let's say every day you experience things, every business you had, everywhere there's lessons. The lessons can be very industry specific. So you know how, for example, banking works, or you know how accounting works, but it can also be more general about creating a culture, hiring people, working together. I still struggle with it because, like, for me now, it's like, it's I'm not really managing the company yet. Like, it's still, the operation is a little bit too small, so we don't really are focusing on culture yet. So those kind of things I know are going to be an issue in the long run. So that's stuff that you want like, too much things to be done, and that's the downside of growing really fast. So we got hundreds of customers in the first month, and we kept the growth. And then, like, you're a serious business, but you're early days, so you focus on the customer, which is of course always a great idea. So we make sure that the customer is always helped and heard, but that puts other stuff maybe a little bit on the back burner. So I think our marketing can be done a lot better. Our brand positioning can be a lot better. I think our team culture deserves more attention. But yeah, we're here just making sure that everybody's served. So it's
that's the culture already, right? I mean, you are
it's
already
also
great
culture.
culture.
I mean,
That's
and I think if you ask me, one of the most important factors of the culture is indeed the fact that, you know, the people that are working here, they're actually really care about their customers, and they really care about, you know, like doing the right thing. So if you work here and you think at 6 o'clock, like, okay, now I'm going to go home, and now, like, the users don't exist anymore. That's not the case. So the users, of course, exist after that hour, and the people who really care will follow up on things and will be there. And that's the kind of people that we need. And that's luckily what you get when you're in a state like this. And it's a beautiful thing. But what I'm saying is like, it's more the small stuff. So when you have more time, then you can actually do team events, and you can sort of create the common thoughts that are in your organization. You can really live your values. You can, you know, do your things. And now we're just working. And I think that's something that we can spend more time on.
Yeah, all right. Okay, fair. For me, I mean, I speak to entrepreneurs regularly. First, not everyone's so vulnerable, so I'm not sure if I get the full story. But two, I feel there is sometimes you hear entrepreneurs, especially in predominantly in Fintech, the industry that we operate in, and they overnight became millionaires. That's what it feels like. Kind of, you don't hear their full journey. They were maybe 18, 20-year-olds, found this company, got funding, and then got millions and millions of additional funding because it was the right time, the right place. I'm sure it was their skills as well, but they didn't go through a similar journey such as you. This is what entrepreneurship is. This is textbook entrepreneurship, I think, what you've gone through. What you hear about these overnight young programmers who started whichever company there is. That is, I think, what you like it to be, but reality is often, I think, what you just described.
Yeah, but I think there's there's no quick way to success. So nobody starts coding a bit and then creates an app and suddenly is a millionaire. Like, it's never that easy. And I do think that in that sense, I might not be let's say as afraid of being vulnerable or anything else, but I think a lot of people are in that sense.
Me too. I can definitely say that.
Yeah. And I think it's also very key to growth, right? So that's of course an easy thing. Like, if you cannot make mistakes, then it's very hard to learn from them.
True. Yeah.
So I think that's very important. And it's every journey is a little bit different, but I think like, as an entrepreneur, without perseverance, like, you're not going to get anything. So there's no shortcut to success. There's no shortcut to becoming a millionaire if that's your goal. And I think you should put skill at the first place for entrepreneurs, because that's always where it comes from. You can be lucky with the timing. You can be lucky in the industry. You can be lucky that, you know, like, you work in with a climate positive bank and it becomes mandatory from the government, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not something you can count on or you can create a business for. So that's just the reality of things.
Last question, looking ahead, what does the next 12, 24, 36 months look like for GoDutch? What are your kind of bigger plans? What's your vision?
Yeah, so for GoDutch, it's important to let's say continue our growth. So that's the first big step for us. Then eventually we're also looking to expand. So first of all, we want to, let's say, continuously improve our product. So it's very important that we have a product that people love, that people use. And for now, that's going really well, but we want to keep on adding features and for example, include payments, so receiving payments, or include lending. And then we need to do it in a way where people can actually benefit from it. So those kind of things are always interesting. We're also looking at expansion in geographies. So eventually we also want to look outside the Netherlands, despite the name. So that's something that's there. And of course, we also are looking into obtaining our own license and becoming an institution ourselves, because that's also something that we feel is crucial to, let's say, our mission of transparency. So GoDutch is transparent about the earnings and the sharing of that part, but we also want to be transparent in our processes and shine a bit more light in how those things work. In order to do that, we need to be, let's say, a financial institution ourselves.
Yeah, in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, I'll definitely keep a tab on the story. Thanks for being on the show, for sharing your kind of adventures.
Super.
Thank you for tuning in to In Check with Fintech. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform or just drop a comment on YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe as well and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. As we wrap up this episode, we challenge you to think about how you can stay ahead in this ever-evolving industry. Whether you're a passionate fintech professional or just generally curious about fintech, there's always something new to learn and explore. Let us help you stay up to date with all things fintech by tuning into our podcast episodes.